In 1895, H.G. Wells published a novel about the far future of humanity. 2 species, 1 surface, 1 underground. The Eloi above, beautiful, passive, fragile. The Morlocks below, pale, industrial, nocturnal, hunting the Eloi at night. For 130 years, literary critics read this as a story about class warfare, the oppressed workers rising against their masters, a socialist parable about the inevitable revenge of the proletariat. And Wells did intend that, partially. But there is something in the biology of the Morlocks that nobody talked about, something that changes everything. The Morlocks cannot survive in daylight. Direct light burns them. Fire terrifies them. Their eyes, evolved over centuries underground, are destroyed by the sun. And yet, they keep trying to take the surface, over and over and over again. I need you to think about that, because a species that cannot survive in daylight does not conquer the surface. It conquers the night. And those are not the same thing, not even close. Let's start with what Wells actually wrote, and then let's go somewhere Wells did not go. The time machine is set in the year 2701. Humanity has split into 2 species, not by accident, but by sustained inequality compounding over hundreds of thousands of years. The upper class, comfortable, protected, never needing to work, evolved into the Eloi, gentle, childlike, completely dependent on systems they no longer understand. The working class, forced underground, living in industrial darkness, maintaining the machinery that sustained the surface world, evolved into the Morlocks. Wells' message was clear. Unchecked capitalism produces 2 kinds of humans: those who consume everything, and those who maintain everything. And eventually, the maintainers get hungry. That is the official reading, and it is correct, as far as it goes. But here is what the official reading does not address. If the Morlocks win, if they successfully drive the Eloi from the surface, if they take control of the upper world, what exactly have they won? A world they cannot inhabit during daylight. A terrain that, by their own biology, is only usable for half of every 24 hours. They would not conquer the surface. They would expand their cave, upward, and call it victory. Now, before we go further, I have to address something. If you have spent any time in the darker corners of the internet, you have encountered a theory that somewhere in California, in a forest of redwood trees, powerful men gather every summer around a 40-foot stone owl, and that this owl represents an ancient deity called Moloch. The same Moloch that Wells may have had in mind when he named the Morlocks, the Bohemian Grove, founded 1872, annual retreat for presidents, CEOs, former heads of state, and the kind of people whose names you recognize from buildings. Every summer, redwood forest, 40-foot owl, a ceremony called the cremation of care, where an effigy is burned in front of the statue, while men in robes perform a ritual that has been described, variously, as theatrical, occult, and somewhere in between. Alex Jones filmed it in 2000 and declared on camera that the owl was Moloch, the ancient Canaanite god of child sacrifice. Here's the problem with that theory. Moloch was traditionally depicted as a bull, not an owl. The owl is the symbol of Athena, of Minerva, of wisdom. The connection between the Bohemian Grove owl and Moloch was an error, a conflation popularized by a man who has been wrong about many things with great confidence. But here is what is interesting about that error. It spread faster than the correction. Sound familiar? The error points at something real, And the real thing is more interesting than the conspiracy. Moloch, the actual Moloch, Canaanite deity, 14th century BCE and earlier. The name itself is a deliberate corruption. The worshippers called their god Melech, the king. The Israelites took that name, kept its consonants, and replaced its vowels with the vowels from the word Bosheth, shame. Melech became Moloch. The king became the king of shame. What did Moloch demand? The most documented version involves the sacrifice of children, specifically firstborns, the most precious thing. And what did the worshippers receive in return? Agricultural fertility, financial blessing, victory in war. The promise, essentially, was this: give me the most irreplaceable thing you have, and I will give you something, not a guarantee, not a contract, a promise from a deity who could not be held accountable. And people did it for centuries because the alternative, not doing it, felt worse than the sacrifice itself. Now, connect that to the Morlocks. One scholar proposed that Wells named the Morlocks after Moloch deliberately, with the Eloi serving as the children. The Morlocks hunt the Eloi, not for liberation, not for territory they can use, for food, for the act of consumption itself. And the Eloi, gentle, passive, incapable of resistance, are led into the Morlock's lair by a siren sound. They follow it, without understanding why, without fighting back, the children walking into the fire. Here's the question that nobody asked about the Morlocks. Not Wells, not the film adaptations, not the academic critics. Why do they keep trying? The Morlocks live underground. Their eyes evolved for darkness. Direct sunlight is debilitating. Fire terrifies them. A Morlock on the surface during daylight is not a conqueror. It is prey. And yet, they do not stay underground. They emerge at night. They take what they can. They retreat before dawn. And then they do it again. Not to build something on the surface, not to change the surface, to extract from it and return to the dark. Now, imagine a Morlock who made it. Not just a raid, a real crossing. A Morlock who spent enough time on the surface to begin, just begin, adapting. To see daylight without flinching. To understand the Eloi's world from the inside. What does that Morlock do? If it goes back down, it carries information the rest of the group does not have. It has seen what the surface actually is, not as a raiding ground, as a world. And that information is useless because the group does not want to build a world on the surface. The group wants to raid the surface. Those are fundamentally different objectives. And the Morlock who came back with the wrong objective, the group does the same thing any closed system does with information that contradicts its operating logic. It ignores it, or it eliminates it, because the group does not move toward a destination. The group moves. Movement is the point. The raid is not a means to an end. The raid is the end. Here is the most uncomfortable question in all of this. Suppose the Morlocks succeeded, completely. The Eloi are gone. The surface is theirs. What do they do with it? They can use it at night. During the day, nothing. The sun, the light, the open sky. Everything that makes the surface worth having is inaccessible to them by biological design. They have not conquered a world. They have expanded their cave, and now the cave is bigger, and there is nothing in it. And the Eloi, expelled to the surface permanently, forced to survive without the comfortable infrastructure the Morlocks use to maintain for them, would adapt. Because the Eloi were built for the surface. Daylight is their native environment. They would be weakened at first, disoriented, but over time, better equipped for the terrain they're standing on than the species that expelled them. The Morlocks would have won a war and lost the only thing that made the war worth fighting. Which raises the question, did they know? Did some part of the Morlock collective, some deep biological awareness, understand that complete victory was impossible? That the raid only works if there is something left to raid? That the surface only has value if someone is up there who can use it? And if so, is the war not really about winning? Is the war about the act of making war? Moloch does not promise that the sacrifice will be worth it. Moloch promises that the sacrifice is necessary. The worshippers gave their firstborns not because they were guaranteed a return. They gave them because not giving felt worse. Because the ritual of giving had become the structure of their lives. Take that away, and what are you? A Morlock without a raid, a system without a function, a creature of the dark that has forgotten there was ever anything else. Wells wrote a novel about class warfare, and embedded in it, whether he meant to or not, is something that reads less like a political parable and more like a description of a specific kind of power. The kind that sustains itself not by building anything, but by perpetuating the need to sustain itself. Moloch does not build civilizations. Moloch maintains the conditions under which sacrifice remains necessary. The Morlocks do not build a surface world. They maintain the conditions under which raiding the surface remains necessary. And Bohemian Grove, 40-foot owl, cremation of care, the most powerful men on Earth gathering every summer to symbolically burn their worries, to recommit to the project. Whatever the project is, the owl is not Moloch. The historians are right about that. But the structure of the ritual, giving up your most precious thing in exchange for the permission to keep doing what you are doing, that part is not so different. Alex Jones saw a monster and called it by the wrong name. The question worth asking is not what the owl represents. The question is why men who already have everything they could possibly want still need a ritual to remind themselves to keep going. What are they afraid of stopping? The Morlocks emerge at night. They take what they need. They go back into the dark. They do not ask whether the surface is worth having. They do not ask whether they could survive there. They do not ask. That is not a failure of intelligence. That is the design. A system that questions its own purpose is a system that might stop. And Moloch does not stop. Moloch does not stop because stopping is the only thing Moloch cannot survive. The Morlocks raid because raiding is what Morlocks do. The worshippers sacrifice because sacrifice is what worshippers do. The ritual continues because the ritual is the point, not the surface, not the harvest, not the victory. The act of reaching for something you cannot hold, over and over and over again, in the dark, where they have always been, where they will always be. Wells thought he was writing about capitalism. He was. But he also wrote something older than capitalism, something older than class warfare, something that existed before the first Canaanite put a child in a bronze statue's hands and called it faith. The story of a thing that moves, not toward anything, just moves, because the moving is all it has ever known, and the fire below, always burning, waiting,